trying things helped me understand what I didn't want to do as much as what I did want to do.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Patrick Stack, co-founder of Sports Biz Camps. Sports Biz Camps is sports business 101 for high school students. So we talk to high school kids that are passionate about sports, about career opportunities to work in sports. And we do that by having people that work in sports deliver that information. And as part of that, I wanted to welcome Ashley Turner to the Sports Biz Camp Speaker Series. Thanks for coming, Ashley.
Hi, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
So before we jump into Ashley's background, we did want to recognize our sponsor, Ortho Carolina, for their continued support of Sports Biz Camps and Sports Biz Camp Speaker Series. So thank you so much for that. Now let's move on to Ashley. Ashley, thank you for joining us. Bit of background about yourself. Help the students learn more about yourself from a hometown, college, undergrad major, and then I think you were a student athlete. Talk about that as well.
Sure. So I'm from a really, really small town about an hour south of Buffalo called Olean, New York. I went to the University of Buffalo where I was a student athlete. I did not run track. I actually played soccer, which was super fun for me. It was a great experience, allowed me to learn a lot about time management and all kinds of other things. And I actually majored in communication and broadcast. I wanted to be in. Turns out I got an internship at a newscasting news station in Buffalo, and I had to be at the office at 3 a.m. and hated it, and quickly decided that that's not what I wanted to do. So I learned a lot, loved my experience there, but not what I ultimately ended up working in.
But you should feel very comfortable in the setting, I would imagine.
Yes, I do feel very comfortable in the setting. I find myself trying to make sure my voice is right and my levels are correct. But yeah, I feel very comfortable. You're
crushing. We've got a pro on the speaker series. We got one pro today.
Oh gosh.
All right, so Ashley, to kind of get us started, we break our content up into 4 quarters. But before we do that, we want to do a little bit of warm-ups. So you played soccer. Is it called soccer or football?
It's called soccer because we live in America.
Okay, cool. Best player ever on the U.S. women's national team?
Good question. I have to go back to Michelle Akers. She's really the godmother of soccer. Before Mia Hamm, before Brandi Chastain or any of these people, Michelle Akers was the cream of the crop of players for the U.S. women's national team.
Yeah, so she was on the 99 team, right? But she was kind of later on in her career by that point?
Yes, correct.
All right, you live in Florida now. I live in North Carolina, so I'm not sure if this is a thing in Florida. It is in North Carolina, but you're from Buffalo. So sweet tea or no?
I'm an Arnold Palmer girl.
Oh, there you go.
I need it half and half. Sweet tea by itself is not for me, but a little Arnold Palmer is where I like to live.
That's the Buffalo, New York in you right there. Right?
Exactly.
If you're from anywhere near Canada, the Canadian border, you can't just down a sweet tea without any.
No, it's not. It just can't do it.
All right, so you also worked for the Orlando Magic, and you've been in Orlando for a number of years. This is something that I wanted to ask people who live in Orlando, because a lot of people visit Orlando, go to Disney World. You've lived in Orlando. How many times have you actually been to Disney World?
I've lived in Orlando almost a decade, and I think I've only been 3 times.
Do people come visit you to go?
Oh, for sure. People come visit me to go, and they're always like, oh, we would love to see you. But Disney's actually 30 minutes from where I live in downtown Orlando. So people are like, oh, I'm in Orlando. I'd love to see you, or I came to see you. I'm like, you didn't. You're staying 30 minutes from me. It's fine. Just go enjoy time with your family. So I don't mind it. I get it.
So Orlando's known for, obviously, Disney World. And the last question, you worked at some time with the Magic, and I imagine the Magic had a good run at the Dwight Howard, Rashard Lewis, and those guys. But for me growing up, and maybe a little bit for you, It was Shaquille O'Neal, Penny Hardaway, Nick Anderson, and those guys. And obviously Shaquille O'Neal was a member of the Magic for the Lakers. If Shaq and Penny hadn't left, over or under 3 NBA championships?
Oh, good question. I've been thinking about this, and I'm going to say under, only because of the competition that was surrounding them. It's really hard to win a championship, and as good as they were, Penny was unhealthy for a lot of years. I think maybe they would have won 2 max.
It's interesting to think about that too, to your point, right? The Last Dance is on right now on ESPN, and they would have had to beat Jordan. To get there.
That's what I'm saying. I think people underestimate how hard it is to actually win a championship. There's a lot of really and are really good players who've like never won.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Very hard. Awesome. Great job. Moving on to four quarters. All right.
Can't wait. I'm excited. I'm ready.
So taking you back to Olean, New York, the early years, you played soccer. So was that your relationship with sports started with soccer, ended with soccer? Did you play other sports? Kind of when did sports become a really important part of your life?
So I'm the youngest of 5 children, and I'm totally the oops baby because I'm like 10 years younger than my closest sibling. So I grew up watching my brothers specifically play a ton of sports. They played football, basketball, soccer, baseball. So I've played sports and been around sports my entire life. In high school, I played soccer, I played basketball, and I ran track and played softball. So switched on and off in the spring. Basketball is really my real love. I'm only 5'3", so I never got tall enough to like really be competitive. But in high school, we were really good. We won the league every year. Never lost a league game in my entire varsity career.
Oh, wow.
I just got recruited to play soccer because that's really my stature allowed. Can't remember anything that didn't involve sports. So played sports my whole life, love sports. I love watching sports. It's kind of like in the fabric of who I am.
Was there a most memorable sports moment growing up? Maybe a game that you went to or a game that you played in? Clearly wasn't many losses from your league play because you never lost.
Yeah, we used to play like the Buffalo. So Buffalo was considered like the big city where I was growing up, which it is a big city in the grand scheme of things, second largest city in New York State. But we used to play the Catholic leagues in Buffalo. And there was this one school called Narden who won states in the Catholic league. And we would just play in a tournament against them. And at halftime of our game, the score was like 50 to like 45. Like we were like killing it. And one of the few high school games that I have on tape, and I still like when I'm home at my parents' house to watch because like it was just such an electrifying game that I still like remember like every play and like how intense that was and how big of a deal it was because they ended up winning states, which was really cool. We were one of like the 2 teams that beat them in like the whole season.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it was cool.
And it's pretty awesome you still watch the video too. VHS tape?
I just had them for Christmas, had all the VHSs converted for my dad. So yes, until this Christmas. Kids don't even know what a VHS tape is. We'll have to have a whole interview on what that means.
Like, think about that. We're doing this video now on a computer, and then we're talking about VHS tapes. That's very, yes. All right, second quarter. So you're crushing and playing sports in high school. And then you decide you want to be a student athlete at Buffalo. Talk us through that experience of how you, I guess, dealt with that, right? Being a student athlete in college isn't easy.
Yeah, so it wasn't easy. It was definitely a different level of commitment. In high school, all of that sort of came easy. In college, you have to think that when everyone is taking a class, for 2 hours here or an hour there, and I have all day Friday off, we were traveling. So my freshman year was actually a really big adjustment. I remember taking in the fall almost all of my exams in a hotel like conference room with a proxy because we just were on the road. We left every day, every weekend on Thursday and didn't come back till Sunday night. So even when we were at home, you still had curfew, you still had to be in at a certain time. You weren't doing your normal routine. So a lot of learning how to manage my time, learning how to be okay with I'm committed to this thing. And, my friends who don't play sports are going to a party or going to the movies or just hanging out. I got to be up for a 6 o'clock lift. Like I can't be out and about. Right. And Buffalo's a special place. So people were busy. And so it took a lot of dedication in deciding like, I really want to be committed to being a great student athlete, which means I have to commit as much time to my sport as I do to my academics. And I learned a lot. My freshman year was really, really hard looking back, but it helped me in life to manage a lot of different things pulling at me in different directions to make sure that I committed to everything appropriate amount of time to be successful.
Thank you for sharing. I think kind of as we start to shift gears from college to career, I wanted to talk through, you clearly didn't become a broadcast journalist.
No.
How? Walk me through that story. We talked about this a little bit, but help me understand how you eventually ended up in the sports industry. And there just sounds like there's a specific person that kind of helped put you on that path.
Yeah, so I actually had 2 really specific people in my life. They were both gentlemen who worked in the athletic department at the University of Buffalo. One was Ward Manuel, who was my athletic director at the time, and the other was a guy named Paul Vecchio, who was the athletic director over like sports information, so kind of managing all the stats and historical facts of the athletic department. And Paul is the guy who actually got me the internship at, Channel 2 News or whatever it was at the time. And it was miserable. Like, think about having to be at work at 3 a.m. in Buffalo, 2 freaking feet of snow. It's winter. You're scraping your car off and trying to get there. And what I appreciate about that is that he made me stick it out. So even though quickly I learned, like, this isn't what I want to do. I don't want to be up at 3 a.m. cutting video of Buffalo Sabres highlights. Like, I don't want to do this. He made me stick it out, because part of your experience is learning what you don't like as much as what you do like. So if I hadn't done that, if nobody had sort of pushed me into doing that and staying with that, I wouldn't have known that I didn't want to do that until it was maybe too late. Like, I had already committed to a full-time job or whatever the case may be. And upon graduation, I was thinking, like, okay, I'm having a hard time getting a job. And I went to my athletic director and said, like, I'm not sure what my next step should be. The market's not really good. And he basically strong-armed me into going to graduate school and helping me to be a better, more well-rounded professional. So I was learning a more specific, targeted skill set in business and marketing and accounting and all the things that really go into the behind the scenes of working in sports, right? We all see TV and we see the ball being dribbled and shots going up and cool dunks and all these things, but how we get people in the seats and how we get sponsors and all those things have to do with the business side of it. So he strong-armed me, and I'm super grateful. I tell him all the time that, like, when I'm ready, I'm going to come work for you, because the relationships are important. But it was great because it taught me kind of the business side of sports. I always knew that I loved sports, but I didn't really know kind of what went behind, making the wheels turn and figuring out how to get people in the arena and make sure that, like, sports can happen outside of just the game itself. So that was kind of my career path. I went from undergrad straight to graduate school, and then was lucky enough to opportunity right out of graduate school.
Yeah. So can we kind of I want to work kind of your current career back to your early part, because it's relevant as you talk about graduate school, because that's what you currently do today, right? So talk about your current role at UCF, and then help our students understand what is graduate school and why it's important, or why it might make sense for someone that's looking to essentially pursue a career in the sports industry.
Sure. So right now I'm the Director of External Affairs and Partnerships at the University of Central Florida in our DeVos Sport Business Management program. So super long-winded, fancy way to say I build relationships with sports teams, with agencies, with brands such as Pepsi or Corksicle, which is a really cool brand here in Orlando, and help the students to do case studies and industry projects. So they're gaining real world experience while they're studying in a traditional academic sense. So students are going to class certain number of hours a week, learning accounting, finance, business, all the nuts and bolts that go into business. And then it's my job to bring in partners who say, hey, we're trying to figure out how to sell more tickets to Gen Z. Maybe your students, who, by the way, are all Gen Zers, can do a little bit of research and analyze this data and help us understand how we can better engage Gen Z, how they consume content, whether that's via Instagram or TikTok or whatever these young adults are using nowadays. Nothing I understand, but they're teaching me a bunch about it. So that's my job, to make sure that we have partners coming in, engaging our students, teaching them in a real way, more than just what they're learning in the classroom. So take what you learn in the classroom, take what you learn in these projects from our partners, and combine it, and it helps you to be more job ready when you're entering the real world in the sports industry. So undergrad is a little bit more of a well-rounded understanding of what you're learning. So you're kind of figuring out what you want to do. You're a little bit younger, you're taking a little bit more general classes. Graduate school is where you get a little more specific. So you're going to learn more specific about sports marketing. What does it mean to market an iPhone versus marketing the NBA? Or what does it mean to market Budweiser versus marketing LeBron James, right? So that's what graduate school's focus is, whether it's in sports business or it's in finance or it's in engineering, whatever it is, it's more of a honed in focus to sort of expand your skill set and help you to learn whatever field you're thinking about going into. Did I answer your question?
You did greatly, yeah. So usually college is going to be about 4 years, graduate school is probably 2. And the best way to think about it is you found that thing you really like, and now you go deeper, as opposed to kind of going shallow in college. You basically kind of dig into that one thing. And it's important to know.
Better than I did.
No, well, it's because I get to sit back and listen to you talk about it. It's not fair to put you on the spot. But also I think too, it's not a mandatory that you have a master's degree to work in this industry, but it can help you, especially if you're really interested in one specific subject.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also, it's often about timing, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes, you have a great opportunity outside of undergrad and you decide to go work, and there's nothing wrong with that. And maybe 5 years down, you decide that you're going to go back to graduate school and kind of sharpen your skills and hone in on what you're doing. But it's not a requirement. I specifically went because I knew that what I had gotten a degree in wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. And I knew I was interested in sports, and I knew this would sort of help develop me a little bit further. So definitely not required. It's really got to fit into what you're looking to do. And if you really want to kind of go a little bit deeper, as you said.
So you're currently at UCF, but you've worked in the industry prior to.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about what you did, where you did it,
Sure.
and then ultimately why you've now moved into this role.
So I spent the better part of a decade working in professional sports, specifically for NBA teams. So I worked at Madison Square Garden for a couple of years during the mellow height and the building a new arena. So if you're not familiar, basketball Madison Square Garden likes to say they're the world's most famous arena and the mecca of basketball, which means that basketball started in the city. So super cool as a New Yorker, even though I'm not from the city, as a New Yorker, and being 22, 23 years old, coming out of graduate school, to land an opportunity to be a part of that team was incredible. Living in New York City, we were doing a $1 billion renovation of literally the world's most famous arena, getting to experience Carmelo Anthony's first game back in New York as, a New Yorker, even though I'm like, he's from Baltimore. But just getting to experience that, it was a lot of hard work and a lot of crazy hours. I had great leadership. And I was really just taking care of season ticket holders. So somebody who buys all 45, now 44 games of an NBA season to come and watch the NBA, they have what's called a dedicated service manager. So the person you would call to find out, did I pay for my tickets? How's parking? I want to do something special for my son or daughter's birthday. That was my job, to really build relationships with our partners and make sure that they continue to spend their money with us at the end of the day, right? So how do we make sure that they feel like family, want to be a part of the Knicks family, and build those relationships? From there, I actually got recruited to move to Orlando to work for the Orlando Magic. And at the time, the Magic had just built a brand new arena in the Amway Center. They were coming off some pretty long playoff runs with the Dwight Howard era. And we're really looking to say, okay, we got to build this membership platform up. So I went from managing directly clients, directly with clients, to managing a team and saying, okay, here's what our vision is when we're thinking about what it looks like to manage, members and customers. And that was a new experience for me. I was 25. I was super young for the sports world. I know 25 feels really old probably, but I was super young for the sports world, and I was managing a bunch of my peers who were all like, who is this girl? But it was a great opportunity to sort of put my finger on what it looked like to build a membership platform. What do we stand for? What were our values? What was our mission? And from there, I kind of moved around. I got to work in corporate partnerships. Again, another fancy way to say I work with brands. So all the brands that you know and love, Pepsi, Nike, Adidas, things change over the course of time. If Pepsi comes to us and says, we want to sell more Pepsi based on our partnership with the Orlando Magic, it was our job to figure out, okay, how do we do that? How do we make sure people know Pepsi as a name? How do we drive sales and all those things? So I did a plethora of things. Again, came down to having great leadership who put me in the room to say, you know what, I think you should try this. I think you'd be good at this. Let's help you to hone your skills. So I had a ton of experience. And then having gone to the University of Central Florida, when this role became available, it seemed like the perfect balance to give back and have an opportunity to work with young professionals looking to enter the sports world, and be connected to the sports world without having to work 45 games and 30 concerts and all the craziness that comes with working with sports. So it's been a fun decade or so, and I really enjoyed it.
Or being tied to wins and losses or anything like that.
Oh, yeah. I'm not renewing because you guys only won 14 games. I'm like, yeah, you think that was fun for me? I had to watch all of them. You at least only came to 10. So
it's an awesome career path. Thank you for sharing. So we're getting ready to close up here. Fourth quarter, Monday morning quarterback. Let's go back and talk to Ashley when she's in high school. Ooh. We know that she didn't want to be a broadcast journalism anymore, but what would you tell her? What would you tell high school students as far as what do you wish you would have known then that you now know regarding a career path in this industry?
Yeah, I think for me, there's be two things that are really important, which is try things. I think you're so consumed when you're young that you think you know what you want to do. And again, I know I shared, but trying things helped me understand what I didn't want to do as much as what I did want to do. So I would say, even if it's just shadowing, maybe you don't have the time or you don't know the people to, have an opportunity to intern or have a formal role, but just sit down and have a conversation. Talk to your athletic director at your high school, talk to coaches, ask them about their experience, and then just read. I think there's so much information available that was not available, Pat, when you and I were coming up. The internet is this incredible thing that didn't really exist. We were still asking Jeeves, I think, when we were growing up. But just, it helps you to understand sort of what's happening in the sports world. So as much as you're like, oh, I don't want to read another book, I read so much in school, I promise you about the topics that matter to you. So pick up Phil Knight's book and understand how he started Nike and why. And, it's called Shoe Dog, and it's incredible. And you'll learn so much about that you didn't think went into the whole concept of creating these Nikes that you love so much. There's a whole business behind it that's not just cool shoes and LeBron James and Michael Jordan. So that would be probably my advice to younger Ashley, is just learn a little bit more from the people around you and all of the resources that you have at your fingertips.
Yeah, I think you're speaking to me. At some points when students stop become students, they're not required text readings or there's not required readings or whatever. But your brain is a muscle, and especially as athletes, you go to the gym, you got to work out. That's how you get bigger muscle. That's how you run faster, or whatever. The brain is the same way, and reading is a way to stretch that muscle. So I'm glad you brought that up. No one else has brought that up in these speaker series. So thank you.
My pleasure.
And she gave us she's not getting any royalties from Phil Knight. He doesn't need it.
No.
But Shoe Dog is a great book.
He doesn't need my money.
No, he doesn't need your money. Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. It's a great book. All right. We played 4 quarters. It's an overtime. You've got a Hail Mary piece of advice you want to share. This is your last interaction with these students for their foreseeable future. What is one piece of advice you want to give them?
Gosh, I think my final piece of advice would be have fun and enjoy it. I think I didn't really do the best job of memorializing my high school career, my college career, and even my first couple of years in the sports industry. When you're getting these opportunities with, Sports Biz Camps to kind of visit whatever facility or meet these people, write that stuff down, take a couple of pictures, because you're going to look back and be like, man, I wish I had sort of had a better memory of this, or I wish I had written down how I felt about seeing the Falcons Stadium or seeing the Hornets Arena, or whatever the case may be. So my last piece of advice would be enjoy it and spend some time kind of memorializing it, because it goes fast and these opportunities are really incredible. What you're getting to do with Sports Biz Camps is a special thing, and you should really make sure that you remember it. Thank
you, Ashley. We enjoyed it, and we're recording this so it's memorialized. So really great advice.
Perfect.
We're practicing what you're preaching. So thank you to North Carolina again for your support. And most importantly, thank you to Ashley very much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I had a blast.
Bye.